And welcome back, our viewers, continuing in the same almost idea, which is the development of the teamwork, how to work in a teamwork, how to have a proper job in order to excel and to develop our skills. That would be our topic of discussion for today with our dear guest in the studio, Mr. Abd Rahman Magdi, our business coach. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Abd Rahman. First of all, if you can tell us about how can working as part of a team be successful?
Yeah, definitely. I think like one of the biggest challenges facing companies, especially in emerging markets where there is not that much of investment in education, is how people can get together to work as part of the team, and how there could be connections between people based on their competence. So the fundamental idea here for the individuals and the teams to be aware of their own competence, of the value they bring to the table, and then understanding also the competence of every other member in the team, and seeing how we can fit all these competences to build a strong team. This is one aspect in which that I have to understand what am I good at first, and then understand how would I offer this to the team in a way that would maximize the productivity of the overall team and company eventually. And I think one of the most important ideas as well is how do I set up the leadership for this team, because leadership is usually a source of conflict. So people usually want to move in a different directions, and there is usually lots of competition around who takes the leadership. So by then there has to be a very strategic and non-emotional approach to who gets in the leadership, and also choosing the formats of how the team is formatted around the leadership. Like one of the patterns that's being kind of promoted and gaining popularity is having a V curve. Like if you're moving forward, you don't need to build a hierarchy, which is like a command, but you can actually have like birds. If you see birds, they fly in V curves like that. So there is someone in the leadership. Once they really get tired, they kind of move to the back and someone else takes the leadership. So that would make leadership more democratic, and accordingly would allow people to focus their attention on providing the best work, and also establishing connections and meaningful relationships with people around the team and the institution as a whole.
Yes. Mr. Magdi, from your point of view, does connections matter beyond competence and hard work?
Yeah, definitely. I think if we look at any company or any team who wants to get things done eventually, connections is central to getting things done.
Why?
Why? Because I need to get something done. There is definitely somewhere someone who's very competent in getting this thing done at the lowest cost, and the piece of information that basically the contact details of this individual at a certain point in time is extremely valuable. So if you can look at it, you're into production and presenting. So if you think in the studio, there is definitely in a critical condition, there is someone that you need to call, or you need to get their attention, because that would be extremely valuable for the seconds that you have to get things done. So definitely from that angle is finding the right talent who can get things done with a proper cost, in a proper speed. This is something that's extremely valuable for any business or even any social setting.
Yes. In your opinion, how can approaching the challenge of building connections help us in achieving our goals in a working environment?
Yeah, definitely. As we mentioned, connections are very important. So those who do have access to the connections, most likely to be promoted into leadership positions, and also most likely to add more value to the team. So from that angle, if I understand that connections is something that's very valuable, if I have part of me focusing on, of my time, focusing on building connections and getting to know what people are offering relevant to my industry, and I can possibly bring in these connections into the work environment whenever we have a need for it, that would be an extremely valuable skill set. So by then, by developing my ability to build connections and meaningful connections, and being able to engage and influence these connections to come in and produce value, by then I'm becoming extremely valuable to the work environment I'm part of.
Yes.
Yes, to be successful on the professional and on the social level, Mr. Abdu, we have to nurture our network. How that could be done on the long term?
Yeah, I think by then, this idea of building connections and the skill set and the way and the approach that you embody to build these connections, you have to make this a lifestyle. So it becomes the way you think in terms of when I go meet someone, I need to understand what do they need. So what do they look for, and what are they competent at? So understanding when we deal with any individual is that there are always two parts to look at. What do they offer? What are their most competence? What they can get done better than anyone else? And what are their needs? What they're itching for? So if I understand these two pieces of information about every individual, but then I have this central skill set and I have a decent communication skill, by then I can engage with people in a way that help them fulfill their needs and demonstrate their competence in the best way possible. If I establish many connections like that, and I will able to bring these people together, by then I will be building my own personal network, which is by consistently engaging with them in a productive way, offering them opportunities to become better at what they are competent at, or to demonstrate that, and also to fulfill their needs. I'm becoming extremely valuable to a large number of people, and by then there is a personal network that's growing, and I'm in the center of this personal network that can possibly by then be focusing on making me successful as well, because this is what I'm doing to them.
Yes. What could be, in your opinion, one of the major challenges facing a working environment?
Yeah, I think that's gonna differ slightly on the setup for the working environment. But what we're talking about today in terms of becoming more empathetic is looking at people as people, other than looking at them as what we call it as resources. So we have the old approach of looking at human resources, of looking at individuals as resources and assets for the company, but rather the trend and thing that's working there is becoming more empathetic towards the individual, understanding their competence and understanding their needs in their individual case, their personality type, and engaging with them in a way that actually help them to fulfill, demonstrate themselves openly and to fulfill their needs and to excel at their competence. So looking at individuals as individuals and integrating that across the whole operation of a business is extremely valuable thing to focus on. If we're looking about long-term sustainability and people loving their work and becoming more committed to it, if you treat them as humans, you're going to love that.
How we could develop that at the employees, Mr. Abdulrahman, how that could be reachable, because not every employee has these potentials and these skills. So how can we develop that?
Yeah, I think the strongest component in any setup is the culture. And I think the leadership are what are consistently influencing this culture. So there is a lot of things to be done systemically when we look about the personal or the HR department, that they have systems, ways of people to discover their competence. There are many questionnaires that's available that people can go through and extract their core competence. But what always wins is the idea of getting senior leadership walking across their employees and talking to them. So talking to them face-to-face, and also is going to depend on that organization size, is that the more time you need to commit it to talk straight to people and understand their challenges. So becoming less focused on looking at screens and having direct conversations with people would be an extremely valuable tool. Besides, of course, the knowledge about how do I discover people's competence, how do I focus on that positively. That's also a core competence in terms of building the systems to maintain that. But in the core, if we find leaders who are walking with employees, having discussions with them openly, that would make them more open to contribute and to bring their concerns to the leadership and eventually solving that and becoming more committed to the work environment.
Yes, picking on what you just said, you spoke about leadership. So what are some of the traits, essential traits or must-haves of a successful leader?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because also it comes very close to the idea of building connections. You know, connections has to do with being empathetic. So if to connect with someone, I have to be there as a human being other than someone who's demonstrating authority. So the old pattern of looking at leadership and power is looking at it as an authority, as in a title. So by then, leaders who kind of embody this attitude is that I reached that position because of my years of hard work, and I deserve that, and it's my position right now, and I demonstrate the authority. So here we come in any exchange with someone, I'm talking in a position of authority, and that's kind of the bad leadership attitude. Sometimes it works in certain environments, but that's not how you get sustainable development and sustainable kind of winning for businesses to work. They have actually conducted research to see, even in very critical environments like fund managers and investment bankers, etc. And they found that they actually, that was an extensive research, and it's very difficult research as well, because they got senior leadership on camera and seeing how they interact with their employees and their investment opportunities. and they analyze the data in terms of their approach to kind of leading these very critical industries, in which that when we think about investors, we think about people who are very aggressive and they are in a very kind of dominant position. But they found that those who were more empathetic and dealing with people as humans were actually more successful in terms of the return of their investments.
Yes.
Because also there is a critical component once you go to the positional power, is that you actually start losing lots of intelligence from the community. So people are going to be feeding you with what you need to, what you want to listen to, other than what's going on. So
Yes.
being empathetic, dealing with people as human to human, demonstrating some vulnerability. It's not that I know it all. And these are also something to instill in individuals who eventually is going to become the leadership. So the best way also, as we said, is to build a culture of that in the companies and in the society as whole. Even when you look at it from the household, how people were brought up. So people who were brought up in authoritative households are more likely to be more authoritative. They want to control. But those who had the space to participate with their parents, to take decisions, and to kind of participate with their colleagues and with their siblings, they're more likely to become more empathetic and open for these experiences. So even families here do have some responsibility in bringing in the right leadership attitude and eventually leading in that direction.
Yes. The leadership, as you have kindly mentioned, Mr. Abdo, is very important. But how a person could be a successful leader and gain the love and respect of his of the employees that he's working with, or the people who are under his management, and yet he should be firm and he should reach the deadlines which are set for him. So how can we reach this very tough equation?
Yeah, this is a very tough equation for any leader, because if we look at these two extremes we mentioned, usually those who are very strict and very sharp, they most likely are very good at getting things done in the short term. So they know how to set up very strict rules and to get everyone to stick to it. On the other hand, when we think about people who are more empathetic, we would understand if I said that I couldn't match the deadline because of such and such, they would eventually understand that. I think the challenge here is looking at this as a long-term venture, as long-term investment in that. So I have to be like mostly outsourcing this responsibility of managing the deadline to the rules and the code of conduct within the society. So other than me telling you to do that, we sit down as a group and we say that these are the responsibilities of every individual within the group. We want to meet this deadline. Like, you actually build emotional capacity for people in readiness. You understand their needs. So by then, if there is any challenge, they can talk to you. So you opened up all the challenges and any possible challenge they might face to face this objective. But then you created an open environment, but by then there is responsibility. So when it comes to matching deadline, there is responsibility, and there's going to be some tough conversations. So when you're empathetic, it doesn't mean that you do not have to be confrontational. Sometimes you have to even be more confrontational, because creating this empathetic sphere would require people to become more vulnerable. And the first one who's going to become vulnerable is you as a leader. So when you say that I need this to get done and we need this as an institution, you're making yourself vulnerable, and then they are seeing that they're contributing to that. And most people are going to respond positively to this. Indeed. And those who does not respond positively, maybe you just do not need them in their team. So, but then if people does not fit within their culture, maybe the good decision is to just let them go.
Yes, indeed.
By this, we come to the end of this segment. We really do appreciate your insight, Mr. Abdulrahman Magdi, business coach. Thank you so much for being with us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdulrahman. And with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of myself, Maïsti Rabia, and my dear colleague, Karim Jamaluddin. Thank you, Karim.
Thank you, Maïsti. And dear viewers, till we meet again, this is goodbye.